Happy Saturday, guys. Hope you've had a great week. Hope your weekend's off to a great start. This week I wanted to continue in Romans chapter 10 and share a few thoughts from that chapter. But in light of some of the events that have happened the last couple weeks surrounding the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and there's been a lot of things said, a lot of things good actions that have been taken, some not so great. But one of the things that really stuck out to me early on was the comments that Erica Kirk mentioned following his death. She talked about how it was often talked at their house and that their goal was to make heaven crowded. I loved that comment. I love that mindset. I love that goal, because that really should be all of our goals, really, to make heaven crowded. But unfortunately, a lot of times we're quite the opposite. We want to make heaven exclusive. We tend to be more gatekeepers instead of door holders for heaven. You see, that's a little bit of what Paul was dealing with in Romans 10. In Romans 10, he's dealing with people that are like him, that some that haven't accepted Jesus and some that have, but overall they don't like the fact that Paul has opened the gospel up to the Gentiles, to everyone. And he uses that word a couple of times. In verse 11, he says, everyone who believes in Jesus will not be put to shame. And then in verse 13, he says, everyone who calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved. Paul's bringing a message that the gospel is for everyone. It's not limited to some that look like us or someone that thinks like us. And so that's hard for us sometimes, because we see an enemy and we don't want them in heaven. We think about Charlie Kirk and the young man that assassinated him, and we don't think we want him in heaven. But really, the gospel's for him as well. The gospel's for everyone. No one is too far gone from its reach. And I think we have to keep that in mind, that that's a goal, to make heaven crowded, to help deliver and tell people about Jesus. You see, it goes on towards the end of the chapter, verse 14, 15, right after that, he says, but how will they be able to call on his name if they haven't heard of him? And that's where Paul really kind of takes it to us and gets it personal with us. Are we the ones that are responsible for taking that to other people? Whether it's across the street or across the country or across the globe, Paul's saying if they haven't heard about it, they're not going to hear about it unless we tell them. And I think that's convicting. And we often think, well, surely everybody has heard about Jesus as much as media and everything that's out there. But there's still a lot of people that have not heard. We often think that's in the remotest villages of our globe, but sometimes it's just right across the street. I heard a story, a minister shared that they had started a prison ministry, and they had converted several men in the prison, and one of them came up to him after a while, and after his conversion, and had a picture, and he showed it to the minister. He said, do you see anything weird about this picture? And the minister said it was just a picture taken from the front of his house out towards the street, and the young man, a younger version of the man, was standing by his motorcycle in the driveway, beer in his hand, just a normal everyday picture. And he said, I didn't really see. I was trying to figure out what he was wanting me to see. And he said, finally, as I looked past the young man, I really saw it. He said, across the street, there was a church and a cross. And he said, the young man kind of teared up and said, this great news that you shared with me, he said, I lived right across the street. And Sundays I would see people file in and file out. And oftentimes I was out there working on my motorcycle or working in my yard. And no one valued me enough to want to share that with me. No one would even cross the street to ask me if I would like to come and join them. You know, he says I probably wouldn't have. He said obviously at that time I wasn't that receptive to it, but the point is no one would even bring him that good news. And sometimes that's convicting because we're much like that. We often think the only people that haven't heard of Jesus are the ones in the jungles, and a lot of times it's really just right across the street. And Paul's telling us, how are they going to hear about it if we're not willing to share it? And I think that's a challenge for us, to find ways to share this good news, this gospel that is the greatest gift, the greatest present, the greatest thing that we could ever have, and we need to share it with other people. When we think about our lives and ultimately where we will spend eternity, we want to make heaven crowded. We want to bring people with us. And so that's our challenge this week, I think, from these verses, that the gospel is for everyone. But everyone means someone specific that you can share the gospel with, that could help them be able to enjoy an eternity in heaven, this great gift of grace that God has given us. And so let's go this week and live that way, live a way that tells people and shows people and points people to the gospel, the good news that Jesus died and rose again so that we can have eternity with him in heaven. Go this week and have a great week on purpose and with purpose.